Thank you. Thank you, Diana. And good morning, good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Fabrice Nkonkoi. I joined the team a month ago. So I am in the Biodiversity People and Landscape Unit. So I'm working like the Program Management Officer. And in my portfolio, I have the coordination role of the Global Peatland Initiative. This baby that you have all uh, produced and you have nurtured during all these years. So I will be taking over from Diana, but I will still be working with Diana, of course. Uh, uh, so we are lucky to still have her support in with us actually. So so I have the coordination role of the Global Peatland Initiative, but I will also work on the indigenous people coordination in the unit, and also some role in the Green Great Wall Initiative that we are currently working in with some of my colleagues. So I'm based in Nairobi. I'm originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo, so one of the pilot countries of the initiative. And I have been working with different organizations. Previously, I worked with WWF in the Congo Basin region. I work with the Zoological Society of London in London, and then I work with the World Bank. I also work with Conservation International. So I am basically like I am I have a bachelor degree in natural resource management from the University of Kinshasa. I have a professional degree from the University of Davis in environmental policy and climate change, University of California, Davis, and I have a master's degree from University of Cambridge in conservation leadership. So I am looking forward to working with all of you, and so that we can all continue this journey that you started some years ago. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fabrice, and looking forward very much to working with you. A fascinating CV as well. So many conversation starters, but we won't go there for now. Because a lot of you new to the group, so welcome, great to see you. And I wondered if we could just do a round of introductions in the chat so we can move on to our first agenda item. So you may want to combine your introduction to the chat. So introduce yourself however you would like to in the chat so we all know who is here. But also to share any news you have, any interesting new papers, any new projects. And the project, at least, we will be integrating into our directory of peatland research projects. So try and keep everyone abreast of that. And maybe Patrick can point us to the page where that is somewhere on our website. But it'd be lovely to hear what you are up to. So over to you. Introduce yourselves and any other updates you have in terms of papers or projects to share with the group. And if you prefer, if you've got an update, do feel free to raise a hand and speak to that as well. But at least for everyone, do the introduction in the chat. Fantastic. How late in the evening is it, Jerome? I hope it's not too painful for you.
It's 11 in the evening, and we're actually I'm still with some conservation friends, champions of marine and terrestrial ecosystem. We're actually in a week-long workshop to update our key biodiversity areas, and we're targeting sites for our 30 by 30 initiative in line with the Kunming, Montreal, KM Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So we just updated our key biodiversity area list and included, I think, around 8 peatlands in the list. So and then targeting them also for new OECMs in the Philippines. So that would entail a lot of research work in the coming months to validate the trigger species and biophysical assessments. Yep. So
Fantastic.
that's some quick updates here, and glad to meet all of you.
Likewise, and thank you for coming in so late, all of you who are there together with Jerome. Fantastic to have you with us. So thanks everyone else for the introductions, and great getting a few new papers. Thanks, Rod. Exciting. And thanks, Patrick, for the link to the research project catalogue. Lydia, nice to see your new peatland project. Maria, for those not familiar with the Can Peat project, maybe put a link to that one as well. That would be nice. Very good. So keep the introductions coming. And before we move on, anyone else fancy just speaking on mic, telling us a little bit about any of your new research that you want to update us on? Thanks,
Thank you,
Maria.
Mark.
Yes.
Maybe Frankie or Beth, maybe you can go and discuss a little bit more about the peatland justice project that we were talking about.
Yes, that's right. Thank you for reminding me, Patrick. Brilliant. Over to you. That would be great. Please.
Sure, yeah, I was just also putting it in the chat quickly, so I will maybe just remove that bit. Yeah, so with Repeat, so Frankie and I, on behalf of Repeat today, we've been preparing a campaign that's going to be working on peat-free horticulture across Europe, so emphasizing kind of the trade of peat, actually, so how it's being moved across Europe, these trade flows. So it's a 2-year campaign at the moment that we have some funding for. We're still looking for some more of the funding. But we have this initial amount to start doing this campaign where we begin with the stakeholder interviews, focus groups, different things to kind of start building towards our final campaign output, which is a deep map that kind of shows these trade flows and visualizes this information, but then also has more folklore or different stories in it than maybe a regular map can contain. Yeah, and what I was also writing in the chat is we're going to do a launch event at the end of next month, which I can send some additional information about, because it would be great to have some of you there where we start to talk about it with some of the network first before going more public with the campaign. Yeah, Frankie, I don't know if there's something that you wanted to else say.
I think that's a good summary for now. Yeah.
Yay, fantastic. Okay, so if you are able to add a bit more, I've put the link to the Repeat project in the chat. Hopefully got that one right. Then also just how to get in touch if you're interested, if you want to find out more or get involved. Please do that and get in touch with either Bethany or Frankie. Fantastic. Good. So moving to our second agenda item. Yes, fantastic.
Sorry, I was late on the trigger. I wanted just to share with everyone, and Rod's message triggered it actually, because FAO has, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of the ICI funding, which is the International Climate Initiative of Germany. And this year we saw a really nice concept, and it's actually one of the more science-y pieces in the sort of range of funding that are available. And the German government is put out a call for proposals, and it was explicitly on mountain peatlands in the Andes and with Argentina. So really building off of proposals and work that the Global Peatlands Initiative has done, raising awareness of the importance of this of these water towers. So FAO had coordinated a consortium with a number of members, and UNEP has joined that consortium. We're not in the lead, but we're part of the partnership. And a lot of that work is being implemented in connection with research institutions, academic institutions that are placed in those countries. So we are keeping our fingers crossed. It'll be a really exciting project if it does come to fruition. But regardless if it does come to fruition or not, there's already that strong connection through developing this project that we're creating with that community across the Andes. So just to share that. It's I think it's about 20 million euro, and it's got 5 countries. And we have a smaller role in it, but a key role, right, to bring the Global South together and also connect up to this research community here. Thanks, over.
Great, and thank you those who've added in the chat introductions, but also sharing your research as well. Great. So I'm going to, yes, hand over to Julie next. Over to you.
Thanks, Mark. I just wanted to also mention that UNEP WCI has also submitted a proposal together with the researchers from the Congo Pit project, which was an answer to a request for proposals from WCS for a peatlands project in the Republic of Congo. So very briefly, the main objective is to assess the costs and benefits of options to further protect and sustainably manage the peatlands of the Republic of Congo. And the project will also identify possible means of financing the conservation and management options. So this is still in a proposal stage. So crossing fingers that we will be successful. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julie. And tell us a little bit more about the research opportunities as you see them in this work.
I mean, this is going to be like, it's going to involve quite some research. So for now, we submitted the proposal with the researchers from the Congo Pit project, but obviously I think we are aiming at seeing who has already worked on this on like assessing financing costs and benefit for the sustainable management of peatlands elsewhere, to see how it could be maybe replicated in the Republic of Congo, etc. So maybe there's some opportunity for collaboration and synergy.
Fantastic. And do make sure that we are aware as a group if and when your proposal is successful, so that we can start exploiting some of those research synergies. So by way of introduction to the next segment, I'm going to invite Diana back to tell us a little bit more about the future of GPI, how this is shaping up, and then one work strand in this that we're going to dive into in this next segment, if that's okay. So Diana.
Great, yeah, thanks. So before moving into my new role, which is the head of the Freshwater Ecosystems Unit, I worked on the development of a sort of a phase 2 or an extension. I wouldn't say it's a full phase 2. For me, the concept of GPI phase 2 is actually scaling, really significantly scaling. And so this is an expansion and a continuation of the project. UNEP is going to be, again, leading that. It's the coordination of the partnership. It's including as well developing projects and programs. So similar to what we've done with the Iki Congo project, which is creating these 2 countries collaborating to protect a peatland and putting up larger scale proposals for example, at that heart of that Iki Congo project, then we've built a basket of funds, the Global Environment Fund, NGCF, CAFI funds that are coming on board as well from WCS. So that Congo Basin program is now sort of bumped up to a real large-scale development program that UNEP's leading, also with partners with complementary funds, to something that's close to 500 million. And that's the level of effort and initiative that we have to make this step change. So the GPI phase 2 is for 2 million euros. We're waiting eagerly, and I'm sure Fabrice is also hopeful that we'll get the news soon, to get the green light with German funds. This will include our original countries of Peru, the 2 Congos, and Indonesia, but it also expanding to 2 new countries, Colombia and Mongolia. And UNEP already has a lot of work in those countries. We have a JEF project in Mongolia and very strong partners there. And an element of that work is to really help to continue to advance the work of the Peatlands Initiative to make the strong connection between policy and science, helping policy makers ask the right questions and look to researchers to also ask the right questions in their policy spaces, and providing, as a research community, these syntheses, fast action syntheses that can answer or give trends and guidance to countries and decision makers that are urgently needing something to make a move on. So the work that we had started here with Mark is going to be also integrated into that next phase of the project to support a scaled up training, but also application of or production of these rapid peatland evidence synthesis project. And I've been accumulating these ideas, but also as a broader community, we've been reaching out, and there's the PeatQuest project and many on the other side of the world that have been accumulating these questions. So we're looking forward to be able to support that. But in the meantime, I will pass back to Mark to share a little bit about this bridging funds and efforts that he's managed to secure. Over to you.
Yes, thanks. So it's actually Lydia Cole who has secured these funds. She is PI on this project, and this is from the British Academy that we've got this funding. So we're making a start now, and this is then going to segue into the GPI project to then scale that out and to do more of the training, more evidence syntheses to be published, and more impact. So Lydia, do you want to explain a little bit more about the project, and then I'll just fill in a few gaps at the end and open up for questions.
Yep, sure. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Diana, for basically explaining the rationale behind the process. Although I am the PI on the project, Mark is Mark's and Diana's and our colleague Eric Jensen's ideas. I'm just the facilitator, but happy to be part of it. And looking forward to learning a lot from the process as well. So for those who don't know me, I'm a lecturer at the University of St Andrews. I'm an ecologist, paleoecologist by training, and I've worked in peatlands in Malaysian Borneo, and more recently Peru with Eurydice, who's also on this call, and now working in Scotland, but with hopes to work in a new geography soon. And my work has increasingly got more interdisciplinary over time, as I've realised that I can't answer all the questions I want to around the conservation of these ecosystems. So this project, as has already been mentioned, is all about how do we get the policy questions answered that different countries have around how we conserve and restore our peatlands. And we've got a smallish amount of money from the British Academy, but plenty to get a pilot phase of the project going. And it will be really delivered by Dr. Eric Jensen, who Mark has worked with for quite a long time, and I've worked with a bit over the last year. He is the CEO and research director of the Virtual Institute of Methods Innovation, and has a lot of experience in training people around how to both develop these rapid evidence syntheses that Mark has also had experience of working with Eric, I think, on a previous project doing the same. So this project is absolutely safe in his hands, and he's going to be dealing with all of the sort of logistics and training side of it. Just to give a few brief details about it, it's going to run for 12 months. It officially started last month in February and will run till about February of next year. The key deliverables or objectives are, first of all, a 1-hour kind of taster training workshop on evidence synthesis and developing policy briefs, which will be open to everybody, I think, and be free, I think. And that we'll also use that as a way of sort of recruiting a number of early career researchers to then follow through the whole training to develop policy briefs and these rapid evidence syntheses, which will, we hope, be published in peer-reviewed journals. Then we've got a hope that we'll translate the policy briefs into non-UN languages as required, according to where those policy questions are coming from. And a key part of the project will also be evaluating the impacts arising from these outputs, if we can, over time, which Mark obviously has a lot of experience with, and Eric also. So we're finalising the details of how many early career researchers we can bring into the project. But the original proposal was that we'd have 5 that would follow all the way through to the point of publishing these rapid evidence syntheses and policy briefs. But we're hoping that we can upscale that maybe to 20 or more early career researchers. So the first stage now, we're going to be recruiting soon for early career researchers, and we'll try and spread that advert widely. Then we need to identify what those policy gaps are. And Diana was mentioning about PeakQuest. So there's a meeting with them next week that Patrick has organised. So thank you, Patrick, to see how we can work with them to answer some of the policy questions that have arisen through that great project that Dr. Alice Milner is leading on from Royal Holloway in the UK. Then we need to select the questions, select the ECRs, and we're still working on the criteria for that selection process. Then the training in doing these rapid evidence syntheses, publishing them, writing policy briefs, and the final stages, which will happen late this year, early next year, is around getting to the point of publication and dissemination of the outputs. So look out for adverts for this soon. It's free to join, I believe, at the moment, but there might be some conditions because we want to make sure that we're getting ECRs that will commit to the whole process of getting to the point of having something to publish that can be shared. And I'm going to hand back over to Mark to give any further details that are needed.
Yeah, so just one other element to this, which is that I'll be doing training on how to turn that publishable evidence synthesis into a policy brief, and to make sure that you have the people who get into the programme have that support to not only write and publish an evidence synthesis, but also to then write and use a policy brief to generate impact from that work as well. So we are looking for your help as a research working group. 3 things. Are you aware of questions? Are you working with policy colleagues in your country who have questions that remain unanswered that you think might be suitable for evidence synthesis? So there is evidence out there, but it's contested, mixed, weak, whatever it might be, and maybe there's some value in applying that to those questions. Secondly, although there's a limited number of people we'll be able to support all the way through, the training will be open to all. So when that is advertised, it'd be great to have as many of you there, but also to get that word out and to provide as many people as possible with those skills via the training course. But then also, finally, your third task is, if you know of an early career researcher who you think would benefit from this, it is on an application basis. We want to make sure that we're being as inclusive and equitable as possible internationally, men and women, etc. But ultimately, there'll be that application process, and if you can get some good applicants in for that, and that could be you never know, please do watch out on your email and at future meetings because that's all beginning as of this month already with the research questions, and next month we'll be getting out those calls for people to get involved. So exciting. This is something we've talked about a number of times over the number of months in this group, and so really great to be able to see this coming to fruition now. Questions or comments, over to you.
I'll just add a quick comment. I mean, I cannot tell you how much, how timely this is. We know we've been talking about it for a while. We're always usually a little bit ahead of the time in the thinking, but you know, I cannot tell you how critical this is. I'm getting inundated with requests all the time, and also this appetite for the syntheses is actually also growing. People, I think, are realizing that rapid evidence synthesis is actually, you know, valuable, and we don't have to go through endless and long processes to actually get to some meaningful trends and policy advice. Thanks.
Yeah, incredibly powerful tool for evidence-based policy.
Can I just add something on what Diana just said? So, as I said, I am originally from DRC. So, I'm from the Maindombe province. So I think you are aware that the Maindombe province is part of the 6 provinces that cover the Congo pit in the Cuvette Centrale. So last week I was in Congo Brazzaville because we had a learning workshop and then the steering committee meeting of the Congo Pit project, Iki Congo Pit project. And during this meeting, one of the focal points from the DRC, Jean-Jacques, that you may know, asked a question to the Congo Pit project. And his question just highlight the importance of the project. And that's why I'm actually just reiterating what Diana just said about this project being really, really timely. And his question was that there are a lot of researches, findings that at the national level, they still don't know how to use these researches, findings to design policies that are actually based on the research findings. So his question was directly to the Congo Pit project research, so that he says that we've been working with the Congo Pit project research for, you know, many years now, since I think 2017, when they discovered the Congo Pitlands zone, and they still want to know exactly how they can use the findings to define policies at the national levels. So I think this is actually one of the key elements that I mean the project that Lydia just presented will try to tackle. And I think if there is one question, maybe the first question would be from policymakers. They would like to know how these findings, you know, all these evidences will be translated into their national policies. So I think that's maybe the first question we should be trying to address. You know, we will come up with evidences, but how then to make those evidences, let's say in French we say comestible, you know, eatable or edible at the national level. So I think that's maybe the first question that we should be addressing. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. So it's one thing to create an evidence synthesis, another to write a policy brief, but quite another thing to work with policy colleagues to turn research into something that's not just technically feasible, the research says it's possible, but is politically feasible in a real world context. And that brings us onto the next agenda point, which is looking at impacts that we as a group might be able to contribute towards. And
Orang luar semua.
Oh, sorry, we'll just, I think that's someone just not on mute. And so one of the things we're going to look at is policy training. So in the chat, I'm going to provide you a link to this, so you can sign up for this. It's in September, and this is a free training which is being offered to researchers. It's a 3-hour course, and it is based on my forthcoming book, which is also released in September. Which you can see there on influencing policy. So trying to provide researchers with the skills they need beyond just writing policy briefs, the more nuanced skills they need to work in the kind of ways that Fabrice is talking about, I think very much needed. And so I'm going to move on, if I may, unless there's any other questions, just checking. Yeah, great. Thanks, Rod. So a lot of us already involved in these policy spaces. For others, it kind of feels a bit scary, a bit new. But wherever you are, the goal is that we'll be able to support you in your journey into policy influence based on the research you're doing. So the next segment comes from some work that Diana and Patrick have been doing to add value to European funded projects. So the European Union have funded, I think, 6 projects on peatlands recently, which of course build on a number of other projects that are still ongoing, funded in previous rounds. Diana and Patrick have managed to get themselves onto a bunch of those teams and are working with the other teams to try and identify synergies between those projects. In one of the projects that I'm working in, we created an international advisory board of people involved in international policy to try and identify some impact goals that all of these projects might potentially be able to contribute towards. And so, although as a result, there's a bit of a European bias to some of these goals, I think when you see the ideas that this group has come up with, many of these are much more broadly relevant internationally. And so we wanted to share this at a future event. We're going to have a bit more of a showcase and networking event so that we can bring those projects together. You can find out more about those synergies. But at this point, this is about seeing how you might be able to get involved in some of the impact activities that are beginning to develop between these projects. So on the screen, no, not on the screen, I'm going to give you a link to this. So some of you may have remembered in the training that we did a couple of years ago now on impact, that I work with a logic model approach. And so the idea is you have a conversation, as we did, with a bunch of people doing international policy, and you ask them, what are the changes you would like to see in the world? Those are your impact goals. And on the left-hand side, column A now here, you can see 2 policy and market-related impact goals, changes we would like to see in the world. So if that's your goal, what are the activities that we might choose to do that could get us there? And these are things that our advisory board identified. And the next step is to say, well, who's going to be responsible for this and how are we going to make it happen? And so here is this idea of building capacity in the peatland research community to answer research questions, some of which might feed into this more European-centric policy impact goal, but some which will inevitably go far wider than just the European Union. And you can see now a series of different activities, which maps onto what Lydia just told us, and deadlines that we can then use to track this. And I'm still in the process of coming up with indicators. And so this is the impact training, which I've just given you the link to. But working hopefully with the European Peatlands Initiative and others, so the Greifswald Myers Centre and the Michael Stuffing Foundation, I can't pronounce that, sorry, doing some really great work. We want to build on that. and in terms of market governance as well. A few different things, and one of them which was on the agenda to update you all on. But the point here is lots of synergies between these EU projects, but we're bringing this to this group to identify these broader synergies. So we'll just finish by giving you a flavour of where we're at with the work with the Science-Based Targets Initiative. For those who aren't familiar with this, this is the most popular initiative used by corporations around the world to set science-based net zero targets and then disclose that information publicly in a way that is responsible. There is a competing method, or it's a competing initiative called the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and both of these organizations have a different stance on peatland carbon markets. SBTI has said that companies using their approach are not allowed to use peatland carbon markets. And this is primarily based on a stance about avoided emissions based on issues as they see it with REDD+ or deforestation carbon markets. But they've used a very broad brush, and that, of course, then means peatland is out as well. The two organizations are doing some work to align the two organizations, so they're both doing similar stuff. Our target is to get SBTI to align with the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and to allow companies to invest in peatland carbon markets. If successful, this will unlock private investment. If unsuccessful and the Greenhouse Gas Protocol aligns with SBTI, this could be a major barrier to implementing the UNEA resolution, as well as Ramsar and IUCN resolutions on global peatland restoration. So it's a big policy target for us. We have put in feedback to consultations and been ignored. We have repeatedly requested meetings and been ignored. We eventually then wrote a joint letter signed by multiple international organizations and large businesses, including businesses that are in SBTI. And rather than giving us the meeting we requested, they told us we've turned this into a formal complaint and it's in our complaints process. They said you'll get a reply in 90 days, and that was last week. And they are still ignoring us. So we've now been trying to find alternative routes, and this is a direct request to you. If any of you have routes in or influence with SBTI, and so we managed to get the UK government to email SBTI to say you need to talk to these people, and that was earlier. That was yesterday. Followed up again today, still nothing. We have our final option, which is an open letter or an opinion piece in the Financial Times. And I've spoken to an FT journalist. He was willing to collaborate with us if need be. But doing our best, and so far failing on this one, but updating you on this, because this is something that we've been talking to you about for a while. But hopefully you can see the value of this logic model approach, sharing this with you so that you can identify synergies as well. And we can, of course, extend this far beyond just those EU projects that we're working with more intensively on this, if you have ideas as well. So a plea for health on that one specific goal. And over to you with your own ideas or suggestions.
Oh, hi, Mark. Sorry, this is Rosie speaking. Sorry, I can't figure out the hand raise function. So if I've spoken over anyone, I do apologize. My initial thought is, if I've got this right, the SBTI is a collaborative group, isn't it? Is there any way of going through? I think the United Nations Global Compact group have links with SBTI. Would there be any way of going in through the GPI UN connection that way, instead of going direct to SBTI, sidestepping and going to one of their partners?
Yeah, that is a very good idea and not something that we have tried. So I'm looking at UN colleagues. Does anyone have connections through to the Global Compact group at all?
Yeah, in my new role, I work very closely with the Global Compact. Actually, they're part of also the UN Water. So I can definitely look at that. I didn't realize it was getting so stuck and entrenched. I would be happy to look at raising it and creating at least a conversation.
Yeah, my response this morning was, we don't want to complain. We just want to talk. Would somebody please meet with us? We think we've got some ideas that could be a win-win.
They don't know us yet, right? They don't know us, but they'll get to know us.
Yes. So great. Another line in. Wonderful. Thank you, Rosie. Good idea.
Thanks, Rosie.
Any other suggestions or comments on this? Okay, but if
and then maybe I'll make a little comment, not a comment on the topic, but just about the Horizon Europe, right? 2 years ago, you know, this is when we sort of targeted, we talked about it. We had this amazing colleague from Bayfor brief us on the EU Horizon projects. And as a result, you know, there's 5 connected up water, peatlands, and marine programs. And really, if you have, I know in Canada and also other parts of the world, you know, maybe you have a similar funding opportunity. And I know that CanPEAT is already, you know, we're quite connected into there. But to see how would you look at this approach that we're taking here, and how could you think about, you know, crossing borders, sharing widely, or trying it out in your own community? So, you know, Mark and I are really happy to talk to anyone about this if you think it's worthwhile to take it up. If you have, as I have as a technical expert, you know, a role as in a number of advisory boards and advisory boards across larger scale projects and programs, and you know, knowing, being in these multiple projects and not even seeing these connected. So if you are someone that can be a connector of connectors, please do also reach out. We'd love to see if we could duplicate this, share, you know, our really relaxed and innovative, but really quite informal way to connect these pieces up. And it's indeed through people, but it's also through carving out a space within these projects, which you might not see at the proposal stage. But if you do have an opportunity to carve out space for this cross sector policy engagement, or you know, these ways to apply what Mark and I have just been learning by doing, really do feel free to reach out, and we happily walk you through the approach, and you can adopt it and take it up into your sphere. We're taking opportunity because the European Peatlands Initiative and the EU Horizon, these things are connecting up. UNEP doesn't usually work, you know, in that space. We don't provide any funding, but we do provide, you know, the technical expertise and the content. And as well, UNEP, we convene partners together. So this is another way that we can actually convene partners together. And I think if you have a role like that in your community, or connecting up with others that do that, we'd love to see it applied. And then we can all learn from it. Thanks.
Thank you for that meta thinking. It's a great illustration of what this group was set up to do. We saw the presentations when the calls came out. We coordinated as a group to apply for that funding, to get connections between each other through this group. We're now doing that work, and we're creating those synergies and those new opportunities again through this group. And this is an entirely replicable model, and exactly what this is set up to do, to get more and better research that has more and better impact. So in the chat is my free logic model. If you want to adapt this approach to your own research, then you can just copy that into your own Google Sheets. And there's lots of detailed instructions on how to create your own impact model. And it's really handy ahead of writing a grant application. If you need to demonstrate impact, do one of these, and it will help you write a much more convincing grant in terms of the impact elements, but equally after you've been awarded as well, as we are doing now. So finally, over to Patrick for an update on the Global Peatland Assessment and the webinars that are happening. Patrick, thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, actually have a couple of updates and well, advertisements regarding the Global Peatlands Assessment in general. But first of all, we are right now monitoring the impact of the Global Peatlands Assessment and trying to look for different reports, research papers, policy briefs, but any type of media coverage that has been citing the Global Peatlands Assessment. So we are already working on a list of resources. I'm gonna put this in the chat. So please help us identify where the Global Peatlands Assessment has been cited or referenced, because we want to know how big is the impact. And well, by now we have identified a lot of research papers, but we're also interested in other type of reports and policy briefs in case you know of any. So yeah, about the webinars. Basically, we are planning a series of regional outreach events to amplify the reach of the Global Peatlands Assessment. And basically, we're going chapter by chapter, and we want to launch this type of webinars specifically to showcase the outcomes from each of the regional chapters. And last year, we organized several side events to feature the chapters from North America, Europe, and Africa. So, well, some of them were in person, others were online. And this year, we want to cover the rest of the chapters. And we are still on the lookout to find relevant international events with regional relevance where we can organize these side events. So I mean, if you are planning to attend any relevant international event this year, and if you would be interested to support us in the coordination of these events, please reach out. However, we also know that online events and webinars in a complete like online setup, they actually work. They can have high impact and reach broad audiences. So this is going to be also an option that we are exploring right now. And in the upcoming months, we're going to be launching these events. So we're going to keep you on the loop. And I mean, not only to participate, but in case if you're interested in supporting in any other way. So yeah, please do reach out if you have also any type of ideas. Also, yeah, well, a couple of months ago, we also were able to launch the translated versions of the summary for policymakers of the Global Peatlands Assessment. So I'm gonna also put this in the chat. We translated the summaries for Spanish and French, and yeah, please help us distribute them through your networks. That's gonna be very valuable for us. And the last thing that I would like to mention is that we are working with the Greifswald Meyer Center currently to develop the global peatland hotspot atlas. And basically, this is an extension of the maps that we already developed for the global peatlands assessment. And we're gonna update some of this data and go more into detail in some of the hotspot or the thematic layers of the maps. So we have a list of biodiversity hotspots, peatlands within protected areas, mountain peatlands, flood events, peatlands fires, human impact over peatlands. And yeah, in total, we have more than 20 maps. So it's going to be very, very exciting. And we want to launch this atlas in a very accessible language for the general public and policymakers. And yeah, basically, we want to translate this science into policy and into action through this very like simple language atlas for everybody to understand. So we're looking forward for this work, and yeah, we're gonna keep you also on the loop. So thank you very much, and let me share you the link of the some translated summary for policymakers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick. And you've got a couple of suggestions already in the chat.
Yes, thanks so much. I want to just add in, because you may have missed it, but we work with partners to launch a peatlands atlas. Actually, partners in Germany actually converted the really scientific, heavy, and like thorough, incredibly important, but incredibly difficult for the layperson to digest. Peatlands, a global peatlands assessment, and published it as a peatland atlas. So the hotspot atlas was something that we were already working on before this peatlands atlas came out, but indeed it's meant to really pull out some of the top emerging issues that we think as the Global Peatlands Initiative and the community of researchers that volunteered your time and expertise into the Global Peatlands Assessment to highlight and then create this sequence of action around these hotspots for action in the hotspot atlases. But if you haven't seen it, please do look at it. This Peatlands Atlas is a compilation and a regurgitation, but a really interesting and creative way to represent the content of the Global Peatlands Assessment. Not all of it, but elements that are important. And you can all also feel free to share that in your groups and in your networks as well. Thanks a lot.
Great, thanks for the feedback, Frankie, as well. So any other comments on this, or questions or reactions to Patrick? Thanks, Patrick, for the link. So I'm busy scratching my head here, thinking I was one of the lead authors on the policy chapter. What could we do in that space? And I don't know, are there any early career social scientists with an interest in policy in the group that might be interested in helping us turn that chapter into a peer-reviewed paper and creating an event linked to that? I'd certainly be interested in hearing from you if that sounds of interest to you. It's just, I think, a capacity issue there on my part. No worries. Great to have you with us, Rosie. Good. So we have room for any other business if there is anything that anyone else would like to raise at this point. And if not, then thank you so much for making the time to come. Thank you for all of your inputs. Stay in touch. And again, a huge thanks to Diana for everything that you've done for this group. Clearly, you're going to be staying with us. You're not leaving. This is still within your new remit. But this group would not have happened without you. We've co-chaired this now for almost 2-3 years, something like this. It's been an absolute pleasure, Diana. So a huge thanks on behalf of everyone for everything that you've input to this group, and also a huge welcome to Fabrice. And we wish you serious success and look forward to continuing working with you in your new role, Diana.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everyone. And carry on. I think we're on this wave, right? Let's just keep going.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Bye, Mark. Bye. Thanks, Susanna.
Bye, everyone.